It's time for Bringing the Heat with Bryan Nolen.
Welcome on in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Bringing the Heat with Bryan Nolen. Last week of April. I can't believe it is the month of May just upon us, just around the corner. It's going to be crazy and it's going to be wild here for FrontStretch.com. More on that in a moment. But on today's edition of Bringing the Heat, we got Leonard Wood, Luken Glover and company. He's done a magnificent job on this. It's an in-depth profile feature, whatever you want to call it, on the Woods, the Wood family. It's a lengthy interview, so this show will be a little bit more in length than previous shows, but it is worth it. So I highly encourage you guys to check out the interview. But you know what? Let's just play the interview now. Let's dive on into the inferno with Mr. Leonard Wood.
Now it's time for...
As racing heated up the bull rings of the Southeast in the late 1940s, a pair of Virginia brothers emerged as an inseparable team. Glenn drove the cars, but it was his younger brother, Leonard's mechanical genius, that would transform NASCAR Grand National racing for generations. Join us as Men Behind the Wrenches takes a look at the cunning Leonard Wood.
To go into the inferno with Bryan.
So, 75 years of racing, and you look at all the teams that have kind of shuttered over years and the people who have left the sport. How have you all been able to maintain that longevity for this long and the success that you all have had?
Well, first of all, 75 years is a long time. And Glenn and I run it, for half of that amount of time. And so I am so proud that Ed and Lynn, Kim, and has kept this thing going this far. And then the younger generation, John, Jordan, and Kevin, is they all helping running it now. And the fact that they kept it running for 75 years is, I just thank all of them so much for keeping it running. So it's not a lot of teams that made it 75 years. Right. I guess Petty is the only one,
right.
Other one.
Yeah.
But I think we're the only one that stayed intact the whole 75 years.
I'm glad you brought up the Petty, because obviously Petty celebrated their 75th, I think, last year, and then y'all are celebrating 75 this year. And obviously you had the rivalry between David Pearson and Richard Petty. What was that rivalry kind of like back in that day?
Well, I am so proud that, we fought hard against each other, and that's what you're supposed to do. I mean, if you didn't go in there to win, you're in your wrong business. But the fact that we're the greatest of friends afterwards, it's saw him yesterday and at the Hall of Fame on the voting, and but I think competing strong against each other, the bottom line in the end, it makes your friendship stronger. And I think if I needed a favor from either one of them, they'd be first to do it.
What got y'all interested in racing? I know you worked on a car at your dad's house, and you were obviously an innovator, seems like from the very beginning. What got you interested in going into NASCAR? Well,
to start with, back years ago, there's a big rivalry between Ford, Chevrolet, GMC, and Dodge trucks as to which truck could pull the biggest load of lumber out of a steep mountain or pull a certain hill in a certain gear and all of that. Just as much as it is in racing. So when racing started, we was ready to go. Yeah. And my brothers used to, drive trucks, haul lumber, and then they started going to the races and watching Curtis Turner. Curtis Turner was a big fan. One of the greatest drivers that's ever been as far as controlling the car or whatever. And Glenn, is about 6 of them decided they was going to build a race car. And it was about between the 6, somebody's going to drive it. So all of them backed out except Glenn. And then Glenn took his personal car And his friend was already racing at the local tracks. In a test session, Glenn went down and run his friend on the racetrack with his race car and kept up with him with a personal car. Yeah. So he figured if he had a real race car that maybe he'd do all right.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's what we started to do, and so it was a local track here in Marsh Speedway, between you and Martinsville. Mm-hmm. So it was a heat race. This guy spun out in front of him, had a big old bumper sticking out. Well, it hooked Glenn's left rear wheel. Well, it bent to housing. This is just in a heat race. And bending the housing, his housing being bent, towing it home, it broke the axle, and the wheel comes off, jerks the gas spout off, and then the housing's hitting the pavement, sparks flying, gas come out of the tank, set it on fire right in the middle of the road between you and Martinsville. So then we took it, fixed it back up, and in his first race he ever run, he finished third, and then it wasn't long before we was sitting on pole and winning races. In 1956, Curtis Turner and Joe Weatherly was Ford Motor Company star drivers, and they both suggested to them to bring us on board. So that's when Ford being factory back.
I imagine it had to be. And what was that difference like going from preparing your own race cars to then being Ford?
Well, we'd still run both of them. Mm-hmm. You know, still kept running the Sportsman modified and the new cars as well.
With Curtis, you mentioned Curtis and the different drivers you had over years, and obviously you had some really good drivers over the years, Hall of Fame drivers. You know, Curtis and Marvin Panch and Tiny Lund and Kelly Yarbrough. What could you easily tell the difference between their styles, especially in that day and age?
All drivers had a little bit different style, mm-hmm. You know, I just can't imagine starting out. You know, I keep mentioning this. Me and Brother Glenn, he said it had to be something better to do than hoeing corn, and to come from that and have the world's greatest drivers. I mean. You know, we had the drivers you mentioned, plus Dan Gurney, the road racer, and Parnelli Jones and A.J. Foyt. I mean, known worldwide. You know,
right.
And we've had so many great drivers. I think it's probably a total of about 80.
Wow. Yeah.
Now, that's just somebody that's driven our car, shook it down, or something.
Sure.
But I forget how many has won races, and there's a certain amount has won 500-mile races, and then there's some that's just won races. But, and then I had the privilege of going up to Michigan a week or so ago, and John come up with this paint scheme with painting the Lotus paint scheme for Darlington.
Yeah.
And to think about it, 60 years ago, we pitted a car for a two-time world champion Formula One driver to win the race 60 years ago, and then looking over at it's a stock car 75 years ago, and all the great memories. In 75 years, you end up with a lot of memories.
I'm glad you brought that up about the 65 years with IndyCar, because I feel like that's something that, with all your NASCAR history, the NASCAR fans can lose sight of the IndyCar success. How did that come together? What was your recollection of that 60 years ago?
Well, 1960 was the first Charlotte Motor Speedway, first World 600 race. Mm-hmm. Fireball Roberts' car, Smokey Yunick's car, Fireball Roberts was the driver. It took them 45 seconds to change two tires and gasoline. Wow. And John Callow of Ford Motor Company says, I think it's something time to be gained in the pits. So naturally, you know, we would like to impress Ford Motor Company, so we right away started working on it, and right away we was down to 25 seconds, two tires and gas.
Wow.
So that was in 1965, we had the pit stop worked out.
Mm-hmm.
And so Henry Ford Motor Company, John Calla again, the same John Calla that mentions time to be gained, asked Brother Glenn, would he like to come up and pit Jim Clark? And Brother Glenn told him, sure, we'd love to. And so we go in and, we don't know if a foreign crew is going to resent us being there, but
Right.
they rolled out the red carpet immediately, when we showed up. And so we started preparing the car for a pit stop and all of that. And so the inspector, he was looking at the fuel tank, and we was working with Venturas back then. And the outlet was up on the tank like about 8 inches, where the others was right on the bottom. He says, how come you got the outlet so far up on the tank? And I said, well, it's just up there. He says, I bet you $1,000 you can't pour 20 gallons a minute out of that thing. See, now, to have the big Ventura, you got to have a hole in the center to make it work. So it had to come off the floor. And so anyway, we didn't bet with the guy, and we made a dry run, and we put 58 gallons in 15 seconds.
Oh, my goodness.
See, now this is when we started gravity flow.
Yeah.
Years before, it was under pressure. So they figured we'd probably be in the pits about a minute, I guess. And so we knew it was going to be under 20 seconds on the stop. The first stop was about 17, 18 seconds, and the commentator says, you can bet he didn't get it full, green crew and all that. So he'll be back in. You can count on that. So never did come in like he thought he would. And sent a runner down there to ask Chapman what he was running. Said must be running half gasoline, half alcohol, so he didn't have to put in as much. He said pure alcohol. So
did they inspect y'all's fuel tank after that?
No, there's nothing wrong with it. It wasn't illegal. Nobody else did it. So anyway, we got the most published in the least amount of time we ever got in our life, and just so much fun. I mean, we was up there a week ahead watching the practice, and to hear that double overhead cam Ford engine rev up, and there's tuning them, race morning, and right. It had the prettiest sound ever was.
Absolutely. It's I know loyalty has been a big thing with your team over the years, loyal to Ford and the Motorcraft brand. And how has that partnership with Ford really just assisted with y'all?
Well, we've always been loyal. That's all we ever run is Ford products. And, back when, Ford was out of racing there for a little while, we got offers, to go to another brand, but I never did want to, and we never did. We stuck with always preferred the Ford brand. I mean, I'm not opposed to people can drive whatever they want. I don't, I have friends from all kinds of different model cars that people drive, but I prefer the Ford brand myself.
I mean, I know you mentioned kind of Ford with Chevy and Toyota, or not Toyota back then, but Chevy and the different manufacturers back then kind of competing. Do you think, NASCAR has changed so much, obviously, over years. Is that kind of missing from the sport today, like those manufacturer wars and the ingenuity that y'all had to express back when you were starting out? Well,
I mean, you need all brands to, to have competition,
Right.
I know back in the Flathead Ford days, back when it first started in the 50s, Ford kind of dominated everything. Chevrolet had a overhead valve, and it kept breaking rock arms, breaking valve springs.
Mm-hmm.
So then they wanted more different brands to be in racing.
I know there was a time where Ford even didn't they boycott some over a summer back years ago?
Yeah.
What did y'all do during that time?
We built that little red modified back there. I took a 66 Ford frame, laid it in the floor, narrowed it, shortened it to fit a 37 Ford body on top of that. So it first of all, it had coil springs in front and leaf springs in the back. The coil springs all the way around, but then I end up putting leaf springs in the back and straight axle in the front.
How'd that work out for you?
Well, Donnie Allison, he won a 300 lap finished ahead of Ray Hendricks. He was one of the top modified drivers. And,
right.
Yeah, and Donnie, I think, almost lapped him, I believe.
When all those different drivers, I mean, you had David Pearson, of course, and that was some of the most successful years. What was that relationship with David? I know it didn't end the way that y'all wanted to, but what kind of person was he like behind the scenes?
Oh, we picked at each other all the time. I call him a scoundrel or something. Anyway, they transferred the name back over to me. Ended up calling me one, but no, we had a great time. That was just a misfortune, the separation at Darlington. We thought he was wanting to retire, but he wasn't ready to retire. He ended up coming back and won the Darlington 500 after that. But yeah, he was just great to work with. He'd go out and he'd hide. Back then you could qualify whenever you wanted to during the day. Mm-hmm. And if a cloud come over, you wanted to go out and qualify. So he'd be hiding from me, me looking for him. A cloud come over and he can't find him. He's down there hiding and looking around, picking at me. But we used to pick at each other a lot. It's a fun time. Great guy to work with. And he knew so much about. He was one guy that you didn't have to worry about whether he's taking the right line or if your car wasn't running. You ruled that out. You might as well work on your car because it definitely wasn't him.
Yes.
He just knew so much about how to enter a corner. I know his setup, the way he drove, you could set a car up to roll free through the corner. Other guys would be loose with it. So you could run a taller gear because it's rolling free through the corner. Now, if it's pushing, it's like you got the brakes on. Now you got to have more gear. Well, he'd have his taller gear, and like at Darlington, he'd roll out of the gas early, and because that taller gear wouldn't slow down.
Oh, my.
And it'd just go in and take a set and pick up the throttle and blow you away down straight away.
It's interesting, especially with how close the cars seem today, where it's just little tenths at a time.
Well, now you can run them wide open or something, but back then you couldn't run them wide open. The tires you had and whatever. But he ended up and says, check this out. So he had a cigarette lighter in his car to start with. And so he blowed by Buddy Baker and lit a cigarette as he passed him at the start-finish line at Darlington. And then, of course, Buddy was the type of guy he'd kind of get upset,
Yeah.
But that's what he would do. He'd work on your mind, You never knew how much David Pearson had left and then he'd turn it on at the last and they didn't know what hit him,
Yeah, it seemed like that kind of driver is. There's obviously over the years there's been a lot of best way to put it, I guess, would be the big egos of drivers over the years. Is there one driver that stood out as just a stubborn, kind of like hard-headed driver that y'all worked with?
Years ago, I mean, you didn't. It wasn't like now they'll bump somebody and knock you. David Pearson, I can't ever remember him bumping anybody to win a race. I mean, to knock them out of the way or whatever. Right. He just flat passed them.
Wow. When you going back to kind of y'all's roots and to y'all's history, I know there's the story of the beech tree that y'all used to work under. And how does that kind of symbolize? I kind of think of that almost as a picture of something that's branched out and rooted. How does that kind of symbolize the history and the success that y'all have experienced?
Well, I mean, I started working on cars, tuning cars before I was 15. I was 15. Glenn was 25 when we started. Mm-hmm. And my dad was a mechanic, great mechanic. And So the only way we could pull the engine out was throw a chain hoist over a big limb on that beech tree and pull the engine out, or raise the back of the car up to change the transmission to take the rear end out or whatever. And so we started from scratch, you might say.
Mm-hmm. Is kind of with your did you always have that knack for mechanics, or when did that interest really start for you? How did you get into it?
It started ever since I was born. I remember telling my dad at 5 years old, I wanted something with a motor on it that would pull me along, and that's when I made that go-kart.
The washing machine power.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was 13 years old when I built that.
Wow.
But I've always, I don't want this to come across as a bragging way or anything, but all my life, thoughts just trigger in my head how to make things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, until today. I mean, I don't know how many times making all this stuff, the 1901 car and the Lotus and all that.
Yeah.
Come up with ways to make stuff, and then another thought, no, let's do it this way. It's the better way. But this triggers in my mind. That's all I can tell you.
Do you have any current projects you're working on? I know you like to stay busy.
Do what now?
Do you have any current projects that you're working on, or?
Well, I just finished one. I wanted to, Eddie, it must have been 6 years ago. He wanted me to make aluminum. I make remote control cars. I made probably 250 of them. But you get a Lexan body. Well, this 71 Mercury, he wanted me to make aluminum body like a 71 Mercury.
Mm-hmm.
So I piddled with it, made me a steel mold to form the aluminum over the mold, and then weld it together. And you can see it. It got one in the museum. It's got the back glass windshield and all that in it. Turned out rather well, and then I told him I was going to make a chassis like I just finished it, a chassis like under the 71 Mercury. The coil springs, the screw jacks, the leaf springs in front, and sway bar. It's exactly like the 71 Mercury, and I just finished it, and I run it in the parking lot. And the thing, actually, like I said, I build these remote control cars, and they sort of tricky and easy to flip over and all that. This thing actually drove more like the real car. So,
wow, that's incredible. Do you have any, or when you look at the drivers today, are there any that you wish had been driving back in the prime of the Wood Brothers, back around David Pearson's time or Cale Yarborough's time?
Well, I hear all the time, what do you think so-and-so would do today? Well, a race car driver is got the talent. It don't make no difference if it's what year it was. And some of them are born with some drivers. You can teach drivers how to drive.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell everything about it.
Yeah.
But there's some of them born with something that the others don't have.
Was it easy for y'all to tell back in David's day, like the different qualities, like he had this kind of quality that would make him faster, or somebody like a Cale Yarborough who? Well,
I always pride myself. I know a good race car driver when I see him.
Yeah.
And you want to know if he's ever sat on pole? Has he ever led a race? Has he ever won a race? Has he ever come from the back to the front? How good does he hit in traffic and all that? You watch all that stuff, and you can tell who's got it and who don't. And then you got to think about, well, now, is his car better?
Yeah.
And sometimes the guy's looking really good, and it's his car.
Yeah.
But, I don't care who it is. Any driver has got to have a good car. He can't carry it around on his back. And you got to always remember, it can be the car. You blame the driver not doing this, and then a lot of times a spotter, crew chief will say run high, run low. Well, you didn't have to tell David Pearson whether he needed to run high or low or whatever. He's already figured out what's the best line for his setup that he's got today.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes maybe another car is doing good low, and they might tell your driver to run low. Well, the thing won't stay down there. It won't run down there. It's not set up to run down there. I remember Dale Inman was at Rockingham, and David Pierce was driving for us, and he was running right around the bottom, which was really good. It's what you want to do.
Yeah.
And so he says, "What do you think we could do to make our car run high?" He's rubbing it into me, And so it so happened that day David got to running high, and that was a good spot for our car. And we won the race and beat him, and his wouldn't run up there.
He was in for a good surprise that day, wasn't he?
Yeah, he asked me what do you do to make it run high? Well, I guess I never did tell him.
Is there a percentage that you would assign, like car and driver, like how much it's the driver and how much is it the car, or does that kind of fluctuate?
You gotta have both. I mean, there's no driver can. I mean, if the thing's pushing, it's pushing. So. You got to have it, and every driver takes a different setup. Now, like I said, David, he drew brakes with his right foot. It didn't mean he was on the left foot brake going in. Nowadays, the car, you do that to keep the nose down and all that stuff. It's a little different, But back years ago, like I said, he'd let off the throttle and with that tall gear at Darlington, let it just take a set. And if he one thing he did, if he was going to catch a car, he's coming up to catch a lap car, and he's going to catch him right in the middle of the corner. Mm-hmm. Well, if you do, you got to back off. He would back off, so he caught him coming off the corner, and then he'd get his start in the middle of the corner and on off where he had a good run. Yeah. Where otherwise, if he backed off the throttle, then you did. You got to follow him another lap to get set up.
Right. Wow.
He always figured it. He always looked ahead. Seemed to always could sense danger.
That's kind of the qualities that you look for, I guess, in a driver.
Well, I mean, you hear people say, boy, he's lucky. Well, a whole lot of that is because he looks ahead. Mm-hmm. And like I said, he could just sense danger.
Yeah. With the driver, we talk about guys like David Pearson and Cale Yarbrough and
Cale, he drove like 110%.
Hard-nosed racer,
all the
right?
time. Hardest drive I've ever seen.
When you look at guys like that, you also had drivers there in the 80s and 90s that maybe we don't hear much about, like a Neil Bonnet or a Morgan Shepherd or Michael Waltrip. What kind of drivers were those like, and what do you remember from those days?
Well, all of them were very capable of winning. If you get the car good, I mean, Morgan, he was a great driver, and all of them guys. Neil Bonnet, he was just he won a race up at Pocono for us, and Buddy Baker was battling him hard, and Neil got in the winner's circle. He said that Buddy Baker says he's the only driver you ever seen who could stick a fist out each side at one time.
But so y'all had a lot of run-ins with Buddy over here.
But Buddy's a great driver. He just tickled me, He won Daytona firecracker race for us, but I remember him down in Talladega. He said, "Man, that thing drives so good. He'd drive for nothing if he didn't need the money." And then, of course, he'd go in the race, and it was one of them times, you misjudge which car to be behind and got kind of knocked out of it. But, yeah, he was another driver that drove hard, give it 100%.
What was Neil like what was his personality? I know they talked a lot about him, especially with his relationship with Dale Earnhardt. What kind of driver was he?
Oh, he was a great guy. He says, what don't make no sense? And and he'd tell me, he didn't he wanted to be political, I guess, but he never wanted to hurt your feelings or nothing. But what don't make no sense? And then he explained it, it feels this. And sure enough, that's what it was. And I got to tell you, we used to have one of the setups, we had a motor mount that had two motor bolts on each side, a motor mount on the right and the left. And the bolt went down and had, a rubber, like a little biscuit, on each side, and you put a nut on the bottom. He's down Talladega, he come in, he says, I know y'all don't do things like this. Says, feel like the motor's loose in this thing. And the bolts was in there. Wasn't no nuts on the bottom.
Oh, my. That would make a lot of sense now, I'm sure.
But, I mean, he was totally, how are you going to explain how a motor's loose, But he was so funny.
Was that first for y'all hearing about the motor? Was that the first you had heard from a driver saying the motor's loose?
I've never heard no. Well, I don't think we ever had the motor loose.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a brand new one for me too. When you look, you had the bonnet days and then Waltrip, and then there's that little lull between Schrader and Bill Elliott, and then you got the win with Trevor Bayne, the 500. But I want to skip ahead to Ryan Blaney, where kind of.
Well, I want to back up and mention Mike Waltrip. We in the Winston the shootout over at Charlotte. And you run it in segments. Well, we wasn't running very good at all in the first part of it. We kept working on it. And the last run before the last 10 laps, they hit the right thing, and the times I could tell was really running good. So the last 10 laps, he comes up and blows Dale Earnhardt Sr. off. And so everybody thought, well, it's just a fluke. Well, I knew he was going to do it because he's running good times, and it wasn't no lucky deal on that. They got it right, and it took off. But I just wanted to pay tribute. He did do a great job.
He told me that before Josh's win here recently, he told me that with y'all getting 100 wins last year, that he always thought that was the 101st because he said his should have counted to the 100 wins. So did y'all consider the same thing? Or?
Yeah, of course, you try to get. You're looking for the 100th win, but how many teams has been in a slump,
right?
That you don't win? I remember years ago we used to win like maybe 2 years, good years, and then you'd have a bad one. And I remember Richard Petty, he won everything one year, and the next year his engine blew up a bunch, and this didn't do nearly as good. But and you mentioned Blaney, great guy.
I was going to ask what kind of driver was like. It just felt like he fit y'all's mold so perfectly, and now you see he's become a champion driver. What was that relationship like between y'all?
Oh, I remember he came to the shop. This before he started driving for us, and we was in Mooresville, and I was talking to him, and it was just like talking to a professional race car driver.
Yeah.
First time I ever met him.
Mm-hmm. Is very, very articulate, isn't he?
Well, he just you can just tell that I could just tell he had some talent right from the start.
Yeah, he's always seemed like one of those drivers who just was very matured over time and taking it
and
all.
Of course, I saw him. I forget what race it was at Pocono, and must have restarted the thing 3 or 4 times. He was leading it, and then have a caution, and he kept beating them on the restart of. I don't know whether it was an Xfinity race or what it was. I don't know, but it's Pocono with him.
Well,
it had to have been Xfinity because we had him in the first win.
With 2 more questions for you if we're good. Yeah, two more questions for you. I'll start first with, you got Josh Berry now, and you just got the win at Las Vegas, which I want to congratulate you all on. But how cool is it to have kind of he's definitely the unorthodox driver in the era that we're in now. How cool is it to have just a short track, hard-nosed racer that he is now thriving with your team and getting y'all where you're fast every single week?
Well, that's a no-brainer. No. Dale Jr., when we hired him, sent Texas to me, John, Ed, and Lynn. about 5 different texts about him, and but when a driver's a proven, like I explained before, has he done this, has he done that, this guy's proven he's got talent. Right now, he showed me that if you get the car right, you just know going in, we got a shot at winning.
Yeah.
Now, you know that you might not win,
Right.
because too many things involved keep you from winning. But you do know that as far as driver's part, he can do his part every race he runs.
Yeah. I kind of like to finish it off here. As you go into the future and hopefully 5 more years for the Wood brothers, what are some lasting memories that you just stick out to you over these last quarter of a century?
Well, I mean, so many things we've done during the 100 races. The first one ever raced, Marvin Pants at Daytona in 1963, qualified the car, and this a sports car guy wanted him to drive his sports car. Well, he backed off the throttle, the back end broke loose, got upside down, caught fire, and him under it. And then Tiny Lund and 3 more guys come through the tunnel, saw it, come up, picked the car up, saved his life. And then Tiny gets in it and wins the race. And that would be one of them. And then, of course, David Pearson and Petty Reckon, and spinning and going to Indianapolis and winning that. And there's just so many great memories. But I'm so proud of Eddie, Lynn, Kim, and Terry, and then now the younger generation, John, Kevin, and Jordan running the team and bringing it up to 75 years. This thrills me big time.
Well, I appreciate it. It's been so much fun to watch over years, and as someone who's loved NASCAR all my life, it's been so cool to watch the success that y'all had and learn about your history. So, Leonard, this was really a treat. I'm humbled to be able to meet you and honored, and thank you so much for taking your time and sharing these stories with us.
My pleasure.
Once again, that was Mr. Leonard Wood in the 75th anniversary of the Wood brothers. He has so much history. I mean, it is legitimately. I will probably. He's probably forgot more than I will ever realize. So, I mean, big thanks to everybody that had. From Luken to the Wood brothers for all of their hospitality and just letting Luken have 40 fantastic minutes. With that being said, let's dive on into what is still hot and bring in my co-host for this evening, Mr. Trey Lyle.
What's still hot? It's time to upgrade you on the latest news in NASCAR.
All right, I'm going to bring in my co-host at this time. He's checking out the Aaron's 499. Is it 2004 or 2005?
You're still wrong. 2004 was on Happy Hour. I changed it for tonight.
Damn it! I thought you were just replaying it because
I like to spice things up. Even though I will say it's an Aaron's 499. It is from a year close to 2004.
2007?
No, it's going the other way.
Oh, 2002?
How about you leave your guesses in the comment section down below, and I tell Brian after we finish recording.
Okay, that works. That works. But first off, fantastic episode of Happy Hour, by the way. Colin Fern of Shake and Bake Sports joined the program. A plethora of topics were discussed. All of that coming up and more. Okay. See, I was like right in the middle, but whatever. Trey, let's dive on into this upcoming weekend at Texas, and one driver that will not be in the race, unfortunately, is going to be
who is part of Shake and Bake Sports.
That is true. Look at us. I mean, transitions galore. We're just flowing like peanut butter and jelly, my friend. Connor Zilich.
You hire a professional radio guy. He can do this, man.
For the love of God, I hope you can if you're getting paid to do this. But unfortunately,
paid's an interesting term, but go ahead.
Hashtag Ed Lane, pay this man some more. He's wanting a pay raise. Connor Zilich He's not going to be racing on Saturday for the NASCAR Xfinity Series. He hurt his back. He was talking with reporters on Saturday after a vicious hit on the final lap of the Xfinity race and said that he's going to be going to the doctor later in the week to get more tests. Obviously, he went to the doctor and was not cleared. So with that being said, Mr. Kyle Larson's going to be taking over the number 88 car for Junior Motorsports. Really, really unfortunate deal for Connor Zilisch. He had a chance to win the race, and unfortunately, the other half of Shake and Bake Sports, Jesse Love, they got together.
Half. There's more than just two.
The two main ones, I feel like. Well, there's three.
Daniel
ones.
Dye is also
Daniel Dye.
in the race at Texas. He's part of the group.
That is true. That is true. But the bromance that those two have is what I'm trying to say. Jesse Love, Connor Zilisch, they get together at the end of the final lap of the Xfinity race. Zilisch unfortunately hurt his back, and he will not be racing. Just what an unfortunate circumstance. It's just a crummy deal.
Yeah, good news for Connor. He's already locked in. He's already won a race this season. He's been really good this season, even outside of the COTA. Like he was. I was shocked to see him leading at Talladega on the white flag lap at a race that has more use of driver skill than the Cup race. But he was doing really good those final laps, controlling both lanes, and then just kind of a weird deal happens at the end. I think Colin broke it down really well on Happy Hour, so check that out. And this happens. The hit was vicious. Like seeing the replay of it, and good news for Junior Motorsports, their replacement is Kyle Larson. Like, come on, like Dale Jr.'s like, okay, cool. I mean, he's not happy, obviously, because the injury, but it's a really cool. It's gonna be cool to see Kyle Larson get another Xfinity start, objectively, but unfortunately, it's bad for Connor Zilisch. The good news for him is he basically will get 3 weeks off because the Xfinity Series is off the next 2 weeks, and that will be good. They won't be at Kansas, and then obviously the All-Star race. So that's good for him in terms of giving him enough time to heal, and he's not missing that many races, because for him, seat time is like the number one thing. And so I'm glad they're playing it safe. They, this is kind of like the Warriors sort of did it like recently with Jimmy Butler. They sat him in game 3 when they were up 2-1.
True.
They just got lucky and won that game. Or they were up. Yeah, they were 1-1 and they sat him in game 3. Or the Celtics did with Jason Tatum in game 2 in a series they won in 5 games. Like, we've seen this in other sports where they'll sit an athlete who's banged up to get proper rest. And I think this is a playoff race. He might, push to make it. Like but it's not. And it's a race where he has less to gain than he does in terms of what the risk is. So I think it's the right call all around. It's going to be cool to see Kyle Larson in the Xfinity car. And it's good for Connor that he's okay, that he's going to take the proper path to get right. And he has got 3 weeks where I would assume he'll be back for Charlotte. And that will be a fun race for him, because that's obviously his home track.
Let's dive on into our soundbite of the week, where we had some controversy after the race at Talladega, and it was from an unlikely source, a famous baseball player that's not a big fan of Joey Logano.
Well, Tony, what angered you at the end of the race? What did you take issue with?
What the hell do you think I was mad about? Dumb little runs us clear down to the infield. He wants to about everybody else, and he's the one that drives like a little. I'm gonna bust his ass.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
And short track racing.
It's time for the sound bites of the week.
So I'm surprised that a professional athlete would act in that manner, because he's been through it, right? Like I say it all the time, I am very careful to form an opinion on an athlete by their emotions or the way they play the game, because I know from being in that position, when there's that much on the line in a competitive environment, you act a certain way because you're out there to win, right? And you got to be able to shut that off. I would have assumed, him being the athlete that he is and was, that he would understand that and not mouth off on social media like somebody that's never played the sport before, or a sport. It's surprising to me. All I can think is just trying to be relevant still, or something like that. I don't really know exactly why. Like I said, I've never met him. I don't have a reason to dislike him outside of now, but
Once again, that was Mr. Joey Logano. Yeah, if you are watching the video portion, you can read what he wrote.
And Dale Jr.'s response.
I mean, it was out of the blue. It was fantastic. I loved it, and it was more like wild than the actual race it was. I love all this, and it's so different that Joey Logano is so different when he straps on the helmet. He is so like just aggressive and just a douche canoe. Well, I probably can't say that, but Trey will get mad at me.
No, you
whatever.
can.
Really?
Again, just it's the George Carlin 7 words. That's
Trey. I'm not the brightest bulb. I forget words.
That's the ones I go with. Shout out to one of the greatest comics ever, George Carlin. Do you know those 7 words?
I have.
Okay, Google it. It's one of the best comedic bits of all time.
Does one of them start with did one of them start with a C?
Yes.
Ah, very nice. Love it.
So it's like his bit. Just it's great. Just
okay.
That's typically where I go when it comes to bleeping things.
Okay. He's just a ginormous douche, but like off the track, and when we're talking with him, he's such a nice guy, and I think that, and I feel like Chipper Jones said that just basically what he heard, because it was a fantastic rant at the end of stage 2, and Logano doesn't care if it's your teammate or if it's like a rookie. He will bite your ass from here to Texas. I mean, he just does not care when he straps on the helmet, Trey.
My favorite part of this is that after all of it, he goes, "Let me be clear, ... at Joey Logano." Like, that's my favorite part of the tweet, is like everyone knew who he's talking about, but he still went, "Let me be clear," and then tagged him in it. It's like, oh, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna, what's the term? Like, when you don't, you tweet at someone, but you don't tag them. It's like,
you're what's it called? You're not quote tweeting. You're
like, whatever.
It's gonna be on the, like, I'm gonna wake up at like 2 a.m. and I'm gonna text you, Trey. I'm gonna be like, oh
yeah, whatever. It's
subtweeting. You're subtweeting.
Yeah, subtweeting. That's it. And it looked like he was gonna subtweet him, and then he goes, "Let me be clear." ... Joey Logano. And of all people, I would have guessed Chipper Jones, who is one of the best third basemen to ever play baseball, a Hall of Famer, a world champion with the Atlanta Braves, who also spent some time in the 804 with the Richmond Braves, which no longer exist. But yeah, it is indeed. But it was just funny. Like, I thought it was funny, and Joey, I kind of hated Joey's response, where it was a very political answer, where it's like, well, he was an athlete, he should understand these moments. It's like,
that's Logano though in a nutshell.
I know.
The first part of that was awesome, and then he had to like throw in the bull crap.
It's like, I did, like he said, I didn't have a problem with him until now, but I mean, I think if Joey just went there and was like, hey, it's, there's heated moments, we all have them, and I maybe got too hot, I really don't care, I'm there to win a race, he has his opinion, we'll move on. I don't want to say it's crying wolf, but it seemed to me he was trying to have his cake and eat it too, and that I think that's why Joey Logano's had a rough relationship with the fans. And it makes him, but that, to his credit, makes him as good as he is. And I can't sit here and say fully that his mindset and the way his mentality is wrong, because he's a 3-time champion for a reason. It's like me saying like LeBron James didn't play basketball right. It's like, well, that's dumb, and I'm not here to say Joey Logano is LeBron James, but I just had to make a point.
I hate that. Anyway, let's dive on into our final thought.
But I'm right. You're
not wrong. You're not
no,
wrong.
I mean, I'm not saying, I wasn't saying, like, my point being, like, it's just, he wants to have his cake and eat it too. It's just never going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But the way he drives a race car is the way he found best for him. And I think if he just accepted the fact that, like, if he just, it kind of what Denny did. Denny just took his driving style and made it his personality, and that's what made him, I don't say beloved, because I feel like at this point, people love to hate him. But that's my point. It's just you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's just at the end.
So dive on into some final thoughts and wrap it up.
It's going to be a drag race all the way back to the start-finish line. No caution. They're side by side, right to the line. Big crash. Here they come. Checkered flag.
The checkered flag is out, and it's time for the final thoughts.
Is in the air, whatever you want to rant, rave, or anything in between. Mr. Trey Lyle, or your real name, Frederick Lyle. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Benjamin. It's not even your name. I don't even, whatever, Dale. Why did you have to do that? All right, so NASCAR. Mike Ford comes out today.
Oh, God.
And says, like, Denny Hamlin's estimate about the bring what you brought race is like less than 2 million of his estimate of 2 million, meaning nothing. And his argument was basically like, it's just a setup for a car. The idea behind it, like it would be the same as if it was every week. It's just you have more range of the setup. And, buddy, if you listen to Denny's argument, his argument was like, well, the way we would have to set up the car is basically trash a car because we're going to cheat as much as possible, and you know, basically meaning this car will not be used. It's not like we can quickly repair the car and use it next week and make it legal again. So it just made him look bad. Like, if, and I haven't listened to the full context of the podcast, so I will give Mike Ford that. Like, I'm not here to fully, ripe on him because he could have made, like, I bet his argument during that podcast, which is Hauler Talk, is probably better than the way he phrased it on Twitter, which was a catchy headline, which is we've all done. So I will give him the benefit of the doubt. I will also say this. Elton Sawyer said, like, why do fans want change when there were 67 lead changes?
Oh, God.
And I think that was even more tone deaf because Mike Ford probably made it. Honestly, I hope he calls Michael Massey because of this, but, I at least could see his argument of, like, you bring a setup every week, you're going to spend that money for that setup every week. Like, I kind of could get it. Like, I could see the path, at least. I could see the path of the argument or the logic behind it. This Elton Sawyer thing, like, buddy, just walk out to the interstate and NASCAR headquarters and during a traffic jam, and that was Talladega. All right? That was Talladega this past weekend. All right? And it's just, to me, the tone deaf that they showed, where it's like, in the words of Michael Massey's great person ever, we like what we see. And I just don't get it. Like, there are ways, you're outside of Jordan Hudson, you're being the worst PR in sports right now.
God.
Like,
oh, God.
So I don't know what to say. All right.
I will say this, and this is totally off topic. I will say this. It makes me love my wife, and you probably love your girlfriend a lot more now just because of how, like, crazy and she is.
I can make some jokes, but I will not for this podcast.
Good boy. You can text them to me, but, like, good God, that chick is out of control. Thank God we haven't had an interview like that before. This is going behind the curtain, but, like, every single PR rep that we've dealt with has never been like that. So thank God. Let's keep up the good. Let's hopefully it's gonna be like, just like all normal ones, and not like that batshit crazy lady that apparently is 24 and dating an old man. But whatever, love is love apparently, or money. Anyway, my top headline. Darlington, snoozer. Bristol, snoozer. Talladega, snoozer. Where are we going this week? We're going to Texas. For the love of God, please let Texas be exciting. Sure, in the past few years, it's been awful, awful, awful. 2 years ago, it was really, really hot, and it was a great race. Last year, it was decent. It's getting better. All I want is just a little bit of opening the door for some good racing. It's been absolutely brutal. Darlington, everybody loves that track. That was a snoozer. Bristol, everybody loves the last great Coliseum. It's basically dead now. No one can pass. Martinsville, basically the same thing. And then Talladega is just, we're saving fuel and it looks cool, but you still can't do anything when it gets to the nitty-gritty part. With that being said, I just want Texas to be serviceable. I don't want this to be the greatest race in all of history, but I don't want this to be a snoozer where Kyle Larson leads 230 out of the 267 laps at the end of the day in Fort Worth. I want a competitive, fun race with comers and goers, strategy, maybe a few wrecks, not a wreck fest, but I just want there to be some actual action and not having to talk. Thank you. Yes, drama or whatever the hell you said. I don't even know. I'm just gonna pretend I didn't hear that. Hopefully, for the love of God, make Texas great again.
Oh, God, no. God, no.
Listen, we talked about
the worst.
We talked about Trump. We talked about Bill Belichick. We
best friends.
I know.
Well, I was gonna say, we should end like actually some positivity for this podcast because I have nothing to plug. Just at Trey Lyle VT. Check out Happy Hour. Check out Through the Gears with Wyatt Watson, which is also now on YouTube. YouTube.com/Front Stretch. But want to shout. I forgot to do this during Happy Hour. Former guest of Happy Hour, Artie Kepner, had his final race at as the director of at Fox for NASCAR. So shout out to him, and he's not retiring. He's if you go back to that Happy Hour episode, if you look behind him, he has a cool it was actually really cool. It was the NFC divisional game between the Packers and the Rams as his backdrop, like the Fox background. He's going to be the director of Monday Night Football. According to Andrew Marchand, I don't think it's been officially announced. So, nice little upgrade for him. No offense to NASCAR fans. I would say Monday Night Football is a little bit of an upgrade for him. And
I will say this.
He'll be the director of a Super Bowl in next season. Not this Super Bowl, the next. So,
I will say this, like for everybody criticizing him, like going to the crowd for fans and children and everything. He does a remarkable job with NFL. He does the NFL on Fox with the number 2 team. It was Joe Davis and Greg Olson last year, and he did a fantastic job. So it's going to be different seeing him in that aspect, but I think he's going to do a really, really good job. We're going to end this with some great news. I was going to wait till next week, but we've talked all negativity, and then we just talked about awful PR reps and then Donald J. Trump making Texas great again. So I am beyond proud to announce Dalton Hopkins, Michael Massey, and yours truly will be going to cover the Indianapolis 500 at the end of the month. It will be mine and Dalton's first ever time, Massey and our boy Alex Gintz's second ever time. Trey, all 3 of us are going to be in one setting. It could be a recipe for disaster or provide fantastic content for Front Stretch. It's going to be fun, though.
So, one, thanks for my invite. Hurtful.
First off, you didn't ask. You said you were going to be on a boat Memorial Day, so we didn't even.
I wasn't going to be on a boat. I was just going to be on the water. So I'm okay. No, you're right. I'm okay. Memorial Day weekend, I go celebrate Memorial Day weekend, and I like watching. So I'm okay. One day I'll go to the Indy 500, but 2, I think there is not a 0 chance that one of you get arrested. So. Praying that doesn't happen, and we need to wrap up this podcast because I don't want an angry text from our boss that this podcast is too long. So can you please wrap it up?
Alrighty. My socials at the Bryan Nolen, at Trey Lyle VT. Big thanks to our producer Matt. I agree, Matt. Money is on Massey for being arrested. Me second, Dalton third, Alex.
No, I'm
fourth.
going Gins.
Alex could do some money laundering, I think.
I'm just telling you. I can make a joke, but I'm
China.
Okay, we'll just leave it at that. That's the way to end. All right, bye everybody. You
For
say
Trey
goodbye.
Lyle, I'm Bryan Nolen. We'll talk with you next week. See you guys.